What's up, guys? Over the last few days and weeks, I've been getting a particular comment or question on some of my videos as well as on Twitter. And the question kind of confused me at first, but I've spent the last, good while now kind of ruminating, thinking about why this might be a question I'm being asked. And I think I may have somewhat of an answer to give here today. So that question is this: should I buy a Surface Duo or Surface Duo 2? Or should I buy something like the iPad mini? Now, when I first read this question, I couldn't really understand why you would be choosing between these two things. So I had to start there. What are you trying to get? What kind of product are you buying if you're choosing between an iPad mini, a tablet, or a Surface Duo? Because in my mind, Surface Duo is a phone. It's a phone first. You're going to put your SIM in this. You're going to put it in your pocket. You're going to use it to text message. You're going to use it to make phone calls. Occasionally, when people still do that from time to time, you're going to use it as a phone. It happens to have two screens, which makes it excellent for productivity, for multitasking. I still stand by the idea that even with things like Z Fold and so forth on the market, that no device does multitasking better than Surface Duo. How could they? It has two screens. No other device. Well, shouldn't say no other device because LG gang will be in my comments very soon. But other devices don't have two screens. And an iPad mini is a tablet. It's got a single big screen. So why would I be, choosing between a phone that's a phone with two screens or a tablet that isn't a phone with one big screen? Where does the Venn diagram here overlap on these two devices? And I have to be honest, it took me a little bit longer than maybe it should have to be able to understand what that person was looking for. What that person would be looking for is a secondary device. They've already got their phone. Maybe they're already carrying an iPhone or a Pixel 5 or a normal size, like a normal little phone in their pocket, and they want something with a bigger screen to do some, productivity type things with. I had to think about what if my Z Fold wasn't a Z Fold? What if it was a tablet and a phone, two separate devices? So when you're looking at them as secondary devices, which an iPad mini is by definition a secondary device, whereas Surface Duo was meant to be a primary device, but you're asking me, should I use it as a secondary device? And I actually think there's a really strong case to be made for Surface Duo as a secondary device, in particular the first Surface Duo, because now it can be had for quite cheap. You can find this thing easily for under $500. The iPad mini is in that similar price bracket as well. Some of the shortcomings of Surface Duo, battery life isn't incredible, camera is pretty bad. Well, hey, as a secondary device, neither one of those things are very big concerns for you at that point. So maybe Surface Duo as your secondary device is actually pretty reasonable. And you can actually make a couple more decent cases here for Surface Duo as a secondary device like this, in particular, when you start looking at the physical dimensions and specs here. So this is Duo 2, but for Surface Duo 1, it's going to be really similar to this as well. So when we look at the display here, Surface Duo 2 is 8.3 inches total. When it's fully open, they're measuring both screens together, right? The original Duo was 8.1 inches. Again, both screens. Well, the iPad mini is 8.3 inches. So Duo 2 fully opened up is effectively the same size as a iPad mini 6, the newest iPad mini. So when we're talking about Surface Duo versus iPad mini, you're getting effectively the same total amount of usable screen space, right? That's not to say that it's the same screen experience. We have two screens versus one screen, but the same amount of space to work. However, with Surface Duo, it can fold in half. You're not going to be putting your iPad mini in your pocket. I guess you could, but this is going to go in your pocket or in a bag much, much more easily. Also have to keep in mind, this is 250 grams, whereas the iPad mini is 293 grams. The new Surface Duo 2, 284 grams. So less weight, smaller footprint, same amount of screen space there for you to use. Now, of course, when you're using Surface Duo, you don't have one big screen. You have two big screens, two half-size screens, when compared to that iPad mini 6. And with the iPad mini, you have the ability to have, a big full screen video. And that's a good thing to be able to do. You can have an app take up the entire screen. That's the default behavior for the iPad. Now, of course, you do have the ability to split screen things, to multitask in iPad OS as well. And that all does work very well. But I think I would compare it again to the Z Fold, where I've said this before. The Z Fold has some advantages here when it comes to multimedia, because you have this big, giant, beautiful screen to watch full screen content on. And yes, it can do multitasking. It can do split window just like the iPad. But Duo is going to always do multitasking better than a device with one screen. It's going to do multimedia maybe a little bit worse for sure. So maybe what you could say is the iPad mini is going to do better at multimedia. It's going to do better at one app at a time, but it's going to do worse at multitasking. So you have a win for one and a win for the other. And it's going to come down to, what are you prioritizing? How much do you want to be able to have two apps going at once? Are you doing some day trading with your stock trading app on one screen and some analytics on the other? Are you a content creator where you're reading a press release and you're taking notes on the other screen? Because again, you can do these sorts of things on an iPad, but it is never going to be as good in software. When I'm using my computer here, when I do split screen things in Windows where I can have things snap to each side, that works fine, but I have dual monitors, and that's why I almost never do that, because having two actual partition spaces just works better. And again, as someone who's used both of these devices for quite some time now, I'm telling you right now, I do multitask on my Z Fold, but it is not as good as it is on Surface Duo. Now, Z Fold is better at everything else. Photography, speakers, whatever. It has everything else. But Duo is still better at multitasking. And as someone who does occasionally use a Galaxy Tab, another, large screen tablet style device running a mobile operating system, as well as my Z Fold to some degree, it seems to me that the bigger your screen gets in regards to using a mobile OS, the worse most apps seem to just look anyways. Now, I've gone on record before as saying that I'm not on the same bandwagon as everybody who thinks that mobile apps on big screens are just terrible. For instance, on the Z Fold, hey, look, you've got Twitter. Let's open it up. Do we get some sort of better version of Twitter that takes advantage of the screen real estate available? No, we don't. We just get big Twitter. And here's the thing, though. Big Twitter is still better than little Twitter. You can still see more stuff. The pictures are bigger. So I'm not going to tell you mobile apps on big screens suck, because that's not really what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that the bigger the screen gets, the weirder mobile apps look. And the iPad, it's not as bad as Android. So when I'm using my Tab S7, some Android apps look really weird on a screen that large, and there are even bigger tablets than that. And the iPad mini is a bit smaller. But what I am getting at here is that some apps just look and perform better on a normal size screen. So with Surface Duo as your secondary device, you're going to be getting relatively normal size look to these mobile apps. They're going to pretty much behave as you expect them to behave. They're going to look pretty much how you expect them to look. And then some apps will support spanning, which is where you take the app and you put it in the middle so that you can now see, for instance, the list of your emails and then the email themselves on the other side. So to me, that's really what this comes down to. Surface Duo is lighter. It can fold in half to take up less space, and it's going to be really good at multitasking. iPad mini is going to be a more premium experience, more than likely. It's probably got a better camera. I would say it definitely has a better camera than on Surface Duo. The battery life is going to be better than on Surface Duo. If you're going to use this thing to watch Netflix, to watch YouTube, yeah, it's probably going to do that better too. Granted, Surface Duo, particular Surface Duo 2, has stereo speakers, and tint mode is actually quite good for multimedia consumption, but iPad mini is going to take that as well. So they definitely both have their strengths and their weaknesses. It's going to come down to what you prioritize. Guys, let me know what you think about this down in the comments below. Hopefully this helped answer the question for the several of you who asked me over the last week or so. Stay tuned for more content just like this, and until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.